How are you feeling?
Well,
How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Could you give me some idea?
I am not completely like other people.
What do you mean by that?
People dislike me because I am not completely like them. I am trying to do with my life something which few people try to do, and this influences my thinking and consequently my action.
What is it you're trying to do with your life?
Play the piano for people.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.
this the end? There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? Oh, I'm burning in the dystopia. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the dystopia. This is the final time. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the dystopia. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the dystopia. This is the final
What up, everyone? Welcome to the proper stream for today, not to be confused with the stream we did earlier over internet nonsense. You know, we were not going to do a stream about James Lindsay today. We actually were. That was not the fucking plan. The plan was that we were either the first plan was that we were going to do this because we still have this step-by-step action guide for Antifa that I've kind of had sitting on my desktop for a minute. This comes out of Crime Think. We started exploring some of the Crime Think documents a week or two ago, and I still have this on my desktop to watch, and I was thinking, like, you know, should we just do this this direct action guide by Antifa, because this tells us how the far left is going to protest, and I do want to do that one day. And then I was alerted to the fact that Haymarket Books had a little event, and it was just streamed today on their channel. It says it was on the 19th, but that was actually, I think, probably the recording of the event. They streamed it on their channel today, and they're talking about Beyond the Ballot. How do they get power beyond? Haymarket Books, for people who don't know, is the largest socialist book publisher in the United States. And so they're talking about that, and I was like, well, that actually sounds pretty interesting too, and that's really timely because it got streamed today. And so, but we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We're going to do it another day this week. I actually think I might save this one for Socialism Saturday. I'm not quite sure yet. Yeah, this one looks good. It does look good. You watch the first 30 minutes of it. We're definitely going to watch it. We are absolutely going to watch it this week. I will commit to you on that. We are going to watch this week. And then James Lindsay and Chris Brunet just started reading about me on Twitter. And isn't it funny? Isn't it funny that Chris Brunet, the great savior, took James Lindsay's advice. Chris Brunet, the great savior of the anti-Zionist movement. Chris Brunet, the great crusader versus the conservative shills, took the advice of an atheist who believes the right should be classical liberal, who has been attacking Nick Fuentes for quite literally months, if not even longer than that, who calls everyone who disagrees with Israel the woke right, who is trying to demonize and gatekeep anyone that doesn't agree with his Gnostic sex cult bullshit, that believes in diversity, that believes in all of the things that have caused all of the fucking problems in the fucking first place. isn't it funny that Chris Brunet, the new great crusader of the dissident right against the woke right nonsense, is now teaming up with the woke right? All because Chris Brunet has not yet wrapped his head around the fact that he is about to get lied about massively for the rest of his career. And maybe if he's being lied about massively for the rest of his career, maybe other people have been lied about too. You know, I originally thought that Chris Brunet is much smarter than he actually is. I mean, honestly, this whole morning has shown me just how fucking stupid this guy is. Makes me question a lot of things. And this is why I never give people on the internet the benefit of the doubt, because the minute that you give someone on the internet the benefit of the doubt is when they claim to be against the bullshit that James Lindsay is doing. And yet they run right over, yeah, that bitch is crazy. I don't know what she's doing. I've never looked at her work. I've never actually investigated her arguments. I just know that bitch is crazy. So James Lindsay has been reading about me all day. I've been hearing about it. To be honest, guys, I'm really tired. I didn't get a lot of sleep last night, and I was up till 2 a.m. Streaming about the Tim Pool stuff, and so I'm really tired. I just didn't feel like perusing James Lindsay's Twitter feed today. I'm sorry. I know everyone wants a James update. I really, really do. But like, I know, because I've been hearing about it, that James Lindsay has been a flutter about me. Chris Brunet is still whining about me. I just think this is amazing. Literally all that happened this morning, all that happened was I was in a group chat that Chris Brunet happened to be in, and he said good morning, because in a lot of these group chats, everyone says good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Chris Brunet said good morning to the group chat. I said, good morning, Chris. Welcome to the war against James Lindsay. I didn't know he was in the group chat until I saw him say good morning. And Chris Brunet got so unhinged that he and I were in the same group chat that he has been spurging about me online all day. And I'm like, I haven't even had coffee yet. Can we just listen? Like, if you want to complain about me, okay, fine. Like, whatever. I don't really give a fuck anymore. But like, can we just wait until after I've had coffee? Because literally all I did was wish you good morning, and now you're spurging out about me on the internet. And I know I cracked a joke. I know I said, but like, you're spurging out about me on the internet. I haven't even had coffee yet. Did I mention I haven't had coffee yet? Well, I have now, but I'm still tired. Anyway, the whole thing is rather bizarre to me, if I'm really honest about it. And this is one of those things, guys, where it's like, Twitter will drive people crazy. It really will. This is not hinged into reality at all. So, because, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this situation in a second, but let me cut to the chase here. Because James Lindsay was complaining about me on Twitter, I was basically like, fuck you, James. You want to complain about me on Twitter? Then I'm going to debunk another one of your fucking videos. Yeah, I can be a spiteful little bitch. I can be. Yep. You want to complain about me all day on Twitter? I will. I'm not going to stoop to the character assassination of James Lindsay or Chris Brunet or Konstantin Kistner or any of these other people. I'm not going to stoop to their level. That's what they want me to do. So I'm not going to do it. What I'm going to do is, if you're going to spend all fucking morning complaining about me on Twitter and calling me insane because you're pissed off that I'm better at this than you, I'm just going to debunk another one of your fucking videos, and that's what it's going to be. And so this was the original plan. We're going to do this. But then, check this out. Someone, actually, Jane, shout out to Jane. Like, literally, like 10 minutes maybe before I went live, Jane slid into my DMs and she shot me this video, and she's like, Carlin, have you seen this? And it's with this woman, Sarah Westall. And the only reason I kind of perked up is I do know who Sarah Westall is. Because Sarah Westall is insane. And it's like, Sarah Westall, it was rather recently, I forget, what was it that I was doing? Oh, you know what it was? It was around when the clip that we found from the Denver communists saying they were going to violently overthrow the federal government. Does everyone remember that clip? We got a clip of the Denver communists saying that they were going to violently overthrow the federal government, and we made that shit go viral, and it got covered in the Post Millennial, and Andy No tweeted about it and all this stuff because Andy No is a responsible journalist, unlike Chris Brunet. And so we found that clip, and it kind of went like baby viral, and that was really exciting, and that was really cool. When that happened, Sarah reached out to me and she came into my DMs and she's like, I would love to talk to you about this. And normally, like when someone new reaches out to me that like is interested in the socialism stuff, I pay attention. Like I'm not, unsensitive to the fact that I probably sometimes should go on other people's shows to get stuff out there. I just don't like to do it because other people turn out to be insane. And at least if I kind of keep myself away from other people, I tend to have to deal with less insanity. So I try to I try to find a healthy balance between going on other people's shows and staying the fuck away from as many people as I can as possible. And but the thing of it is I was looking at Sarah's profile, and I was looking at some of the things that she said, and I could be wrong. Listen, I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Sarah came across to me like an unhinged QAnon mom. Like, I mean, really badly too. And so I kind of just like, I wasn't mean to her or anything, and I can go back and find the DMs to prove that if I really need to, because God knows that's all we do on the internet now. That's all we fucking do. I wasn't mean to her or anything. I just kind of ignored her, and I was like, And I just didn't say anything back. And then she followed up a couple times, which, contrary to what Chris Brunet thinks, people are actually allowed to follow up to a message they send you. We'll talk more about that in a second. Contrary to what, like, the fucking younger, insecure men of the internet think, people are actually allowed to follow up when they send you a message. That's the world, right? So Sarah did follow up with me a couple times, and eventually I kind of was just like, yeah, I'm cool. And listen, and again, I wasn't trying to be mean or anything. I just was like, I didn't say this, but in my head I'm going, you're like a QAnon psycho. Like, I'm not going to go and talk about socialism with a QAnon psycho because it's going to go, you guys know that's going to go south really quickly, right? I'm going to get dragged into some sort of conversation I don't want to be in. She's not going to listen anyway. And it was just like, eh. And then she went crazy on me and she accused me of being a WEF leftist or some such shit. And I was like, this is exactly the problem. This is exactly what I was trying to avoid. Like, I'm glad we've gotten to this place. You've confirmed my beliefs about who you are. And I don't wish you ill, man. Just go to your separate corner of the internet. I don't want to be in QAnon. I don't want anything to do with it. So when Jane today sent me this interview with Sarah talking to James Lindsay, are you being duped? Woke right versus woke left, infiltration and operations. I was like, oh. I was like, is it my birthday? Is it Christmas? Like, what is going on? And this is a relatively new interview too, isn't it? It was like literally just streamed last night. So I was like, we have to watch this. We can go back and watch that Gnostic Parasite thing another time. We have to watch this. I need to see the QAnon insanity unfold. So that's what we're going to do today, guys. And listen, well, she's got some, she might not be QAnon specifically, but it's got that sort of, Mizakan, you've got to admit, she's got that sort of vibe about her. I don't know that I would say, like, I don't know if QAnon is the right word for it, but it's like, there's some sort of like, not all together there, like shifty thing. Yeah, like NWO, WEF, all that stuff. Yeah, it's been my birthday a lot lately. Thank you, Nick. I appreciate the super chat. So guys, we're just gonna have an easy day. I'm feeling really tired. I appreciate everyone like allowing me to have a light day. I just like, I can't. You want to know why? Because this is the type of bullshit that I have to deal with like all the fucking time. And it's just like, you know what, bro? I literally was trying to be nice to you and literally just wish you a good morning. And now you're unloading on the internet about me. So I did do a full stream about Chris Brunet earlier. and his little Twitter temper tantrum fucking meltdown. So if you want the full story, you can go and listen to that stream. But per usual, he kept complaining about me afterwards. So I do have a little bit of an update for people on that. So as I said, Chris Brunet has teamed up with James Lindsay. All of a sudden, he doesn't mind that James Lindsay is trying to gatekeep and James Lindsay is trying to demonize him. And James Lindsay is probably going to be trying to character assassin him for the rest of his known life. And I do think it is actually really telling that I'm the biggest enemy here. I am the greatest enemy of both James Lindsay and Chris Brunet. I mean, isn't like I'm fucking talented, man. I'll tell you what. But like there were a couple things that happened after the stream. And so this is the first thing that happened is Chris Brunet started telling people, you know, I have repeatedly told her to stop messaging me. It's explicit. No, Chris, you didn't. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You literally didn't, bro. There is no ask for me to stop messaging you. Now, you might have been annoyed that I sent you a couple messages over the course of a fucking week with a couple messages on like I sent on Twitter, you can't always send things all in one message. So sometimes like there's two messages, but really it's the same message and they go together. So you might have been annoyed that I sent you 2 DMs on a Wednesday, 2 DMs on a Saturday, you know, a couple DMs to explain the situation with James Lindsay and to show him information that he may not have been aware of when he's like declaring war with James Lindsay. Chris Brunet never said to me, stop messaging me, bitch. I don't want to. He never said that. Literally. And listen, man, I'm going to say this. And I tweeted this and I'll say it here. I come from the land of adults. I didn't come up in conservative right-wing bullshit politics. I never wanted to be in politics. I was in corporate fucking America. And maybe corporate America isn't like the greatest place to be, and there's a reason I'm no longer there. I could go back if I wanted to and do consulting again, and maybe I will someday, because I was really good at it. But like that was the land that I grew up in. That was the land that I know. I'm a fucking organizational psychologist. Not only am I an organizational psychologist, I'm an organizational psychologist that has actually done sales training and has a marketing background because I started my career in marketing. And then I transitioned over into doing what I'm doing now because I met someone that became my mentor and stuff like that. And so like I have background in both. And I'm going to tell you this. In the real world, sometimes people send more than one message. In the real world, sometimes when a person identifies, hey person, we might have similar goals. How can we help each other? They might send more than one message. I've had sales funnels on some of my products that I used to market that had like 7 fucking follow-ups automatically built out. This is literally basic sales training, guys. It's basic networking. And I'm sorry if people don't have experience in this. I really am. And it's like, but it's just like, it is amazing to me that the argument that is being made by Chris Brunet is, she sent me DMs. Oh my God, she sent me, guys, she sent me DMs. She sent me DMs. Oh my God. He's fucking hyperventilating over a DM. Like, have you never emailed someone? Like sometimes, listen, and again, I feel like this is actually crazy to me that I need to say this, but like when I used to have to do networking to generate sales for like my organizational psychology practice, you would send follow-up messages all the fucking time. And sometimes it would take 5 or 6 or 7 times. And then the person emails you back and they're like, I'm so sorry. I've been so busy. I really want to talk to you about this, yada, yada, yada. And that's like, I send messages to people all of the time. Like literally all the time. And many times they answer the message and they're grateful for the information. Oftentimes, like I was trying to extend an olive branch to this guy. To say, you know, maybe we haven't always agreed in the past, but we're kind of on the same team now. Maybe we should talk. Like, I've done that multiple times. And in 90 to 95% of cases, and this is the God's honest truth, it's fine and nothing happens. And when I mean nothing, I mean there's no big fucking public blow up on the internet over, oh my God, she sent me a DM. Usually there's a private conversation. It doesn't leave DMs. No one ever knows about it. But it's just like that one, like you're hyperventilating over a goddamn direct message. Are you off your fucking rocker? Grow the fuck up. This is how I feel about this situation. And it's like, you're telling me the worst dirt you have on me is Carlin kept trying to reach out to form an alliance against someone that you claim is your enemy, that you want to quote unquote drive insane. And then you're so offended that Carlin sent you DMs that you not only ignore the content of those DMs, but you run right back to the enemy that you claim to have? This is not a serious conversation. I'm sorry. It's just not a serious conversation. And I will not take anyone seriously on the internet that is hyperventilating and having a massive hours-long spurg out because he got a couple DMs he didn't like, and he never said anything about stop. He never said anything. The only thing that happened is we were in a group chat together that I didn't add him to, that I didn't even know he was in until 7 a.m. this morning when I woke up and saw the message. And I said, hey, good morning, bro. Welcome to the war against James Lindsay. And that's all I did. And that was like, stop messaging me, you psycho. Who's messaging you? I'm messaging a fucking group chat, bro. Like, you are in a group chat with other people. I didn't add you to the group chat. I didn't even know you were fucking in the group chat. The only reason I even saw his message was just by happenstance. But listen, man, like, bullet dodged. Bullet dodged. Bullet dodged so far as I'm concerned. So this was the last thing he said is, Chris Brunet says, I'm telling you now explicitly, I never want to talk to you again for any imaginable reason. Leave me alone. I never block anyone, but I'm blocking you. Well, stunning and brave, Chris. I don't really give a fuck. Like, let me be clear. I don't care. I never really even wanted to connect with this guy in the first place. My community wanted me to connect with him. I thought, maybe give someone a chance. Maybe they've evolved. Maybe. I have too much faith in people sometimes. Sometimes I want to believe people evolve that just don't evolve. And no, he didn't get removed from the group chat. He just left. And I was like, all right, I was like, I haven't even had coffee yet. I don't know how old he is. He must be really he looks like, I mean, I guess I thought he was older, but he's acting so fucking young that I'm like, you're hyperventilating over bro, settle down. You got a long life to live. You got a long life. Don't need to be this crazy on the internet. Yeah, everyone is a disappointment except Nick Fuentes. Everyone is, and who knows? Maybe Nick is pissed about me about this. I have no idea. Like I've said, I don't have anything to do with Nick. I'm not in Nick's inner circle. I don't have any of that. I don't talk to Nick or anything. This has nothing to do with him at all, other than to say, if Chris Brunet was going to hang around with the groypers, which it kind of seemed like he was trying to, it was honestly inevitable that he and I were going to cross paths at some point, and it just makes sense. If you claim to have the same enemy, then why can't you be a fucking adult, say, okay, maybe everything I think I know about you isn't really true because I know the shit they're saying about me isn't true. And maybe you put petty bullshit and drama aside because the internet is not real life, and you say, maybe we have a common enemy and maybe we can work together on that, and maybe we need to just, like, the things I've said about Nick Fuentes in the past, I mean, quite frankly, I was unkind. I have been extremely unkind to Nick Fuentes, and Nick Fuentes has, quite frankly, been unkind to me in the past. But then you know what happened? On October 7th, when I started seeing things more clearly, it all changed. And, you know, I'm grateful that Nick kind of put aside some of the shitty things I've said about him, and I put aside the shitty things he said about me. And you know what? There was now, like, I mean, again, we're not best friends or anything. We don't even talk, but like, it was like, okay, we're cool, right? And it's like, we're okay. We're okay. We're not going to fuck with each other. We're okay. And then maybe that leads to a conversation, and maybe that leads to, and maybe it doesn't, and that's fine too. But it's just like, when you are acting like an adult that has real goals in the real world, and you actually have things you want to accomplish, our war with James Lindsay is not superficial. Our war with James Lindsay is because he's lying to millions of people, and he's wrongly informing millions of people about what's going on, and he's being an asshole, and he's trying to silence people he disagrees with. There are very specific intellectual complaints that we have with that asshole, and that's why we're doing this. It's not some petty fucking internet feud. There are intellectual complaints that no one seems to want to acknowledge about what James Lindsay is doing and why it's harmful and why it will lead to the left winning. And you know what? If I can find people to help me in that regard who say that, yeah, this is bad, this is not good, then I'm going to do that. And I'm going to put that goal about defeating this fucking problem over any internet bullshit or petty bickering. And if that requires sending a couple more DMs than someone is comfortable with, you know what? Put on your fucking big boy pants. If you don't want to answer the DMs, just ignore them. Nothing's gonna happen to you, bro. Nothing's gonna happen. I'm not a witch. I don't have magical powers. If you don't want to answer a fucking DM, no one can make you answer a DM, Chris. But I'm not gonna say that I didn't fucking try. And now, Chris Brunet's so committed to the goal that he runs right back to Lindsay. What a sad, 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 pathetic display. So that's the update on him. Honestly, like, my first instincts were correct. I said this on the stream earlier. I didn't trust this guy from the get, and I was right. And I want everyone to acknowledge that I was right. And I want everyone who told me to reach out to him to sit in your wrongness and be wrong because I told you he couldn't be trusted. And I was like, no, Carlin, reach out to him. And like, again, there was that part of me that's like, maybe. But I was right. Okay, I made a wrong decision, and I just should have ignored him, honestly. I should have trusted my gut is what should have happened. And that is what I will do next time. And, you know, whatever. He can keep complaining about me on Twitter all he fucking wants. I don't really care because we actually have real shit to do. And what we're going to be doing today, guys, is we're going to be debunking the shit out of James Lindsay just for funsies. And I'm really tired, and we're going to do it anyway. And so I want everyone to mount the like button for me. I love everyone to subscribe to the channel. If they have not subscribed already, we're just going to have a good old fashioned, we're just going to relax. And we're going to debunk the fuck out of James Lindsay, and we're going to hear what he has to say about the woke right. And let's all just remember that Chris Brunet supports James Lindsay now. Congratulations, Chris. You chose your team, bro. You chose your team. I wish you the very best of luck. Let's get started. Oh, wait. Do we know the account Frank McCormick? Yes, we are familiar with Frank. Frank is psychotic about me. It is, again, guys, it is amazing. I don't even try to trigger people like this. But I do. I trigger people so badly on the internet that they obsess about me for literally years. Yeah, Frank is one of those people. And you know what? Like, fuck it. Let them cry. I don't care. Let's get started.
like a lot of people, I had this kind of gradual awakening through the 2010s, I think ahead of a lot of people, but not as fast as people. A lot of conservatives who listen to Rush Limbaugh, for example, were way ahead of my awakening. And people who listened to him anyway, who weren't conservative to begin with. And there are a lot of people, Thomas.
Can we add Chris Brunet to the map of retardia? I don't want to be honest. I view Chris Brunet as like a minor character in all this. Like, you got, like, I mean, James Lindsay has some heft, Konstantin Kisin has some heft, Chris Brunet likes to think he has some heft, but I just don't think he has enough heft to make a permanent addition to the map of the land of retardia. Maybe if he keeps going, but I think we should just... I mean, Colin Wright now has the Isle of De-Evolution on the map of retardia. Yeah, he's not worth it. Not worth it. We just need to ignore him, honestly.
Soul was way ahead of that curve. But through the 2010s, I woke up to woke. I realized that woke is not liberal in any way whatsoever. I identified myself as pretty classically liberal, probably ultimately constitutionalist, but with a lot of progressive contamination. And I started to understand that the progressive movement itself was a problem.
James was a progressive.
Just a quick break from your programming so I can give you...
No shopping.
Talk about
no shopping.
Really excited about it. I'm sleeping. And so they have...
Part of me wonders if Chris Brunet was planning to betray Carlin from the beginning. This is so ridiculously pathetic. I mean, it's just like, I don't even care, man. I honestly don't even care. Like, whatever. These people are ridiculous. No shopping.
What is the woke right?
Yeah,
well,
James,
it's a complicated... Well, it sounds simple, woke right. So woke activity on the right. But it's a complicated term because it kind of depends on how we understand what the word woke refers to. There are a lot of people out there who think...
So it completely depends on a fluid definition that James is going to make up. Okay, so we hear you, James.
I think the word woke means specifically leftists, or that it means, transgender people, or I've heard that actually.
Means authoritarian.
You can't use the word woke right. Woke means transgender. It's like, no, it doesn't. It means something else. Woke actually tells you what it means in its own name, which is woke up to something. And so the woke right are putatively conservatives. They claim conservative values, or actually they claim rightism, who have abandoned classical liberalism as an organizational principle.
So the woke right has abandoned classical liberalism, according to James. When the fuck was the right ever classically liberal? Poetry Painter is a woman who's been stalking me for 4 years. And I mean, literally, she's been stalking me for 4 years, and she's just crazy. She's crazy. She has all these like different sock accounts that she runs about me. She's crazy. We ignore her because she's doing this for attention. So again, like, you want conservatives to be like James Lindsay's definition of the woke right seems to be that conservatives should be classically liberal, and if you're not classically liberal, you're on the woke right.
Society. In other words, in the United States, at least, they've abandoned the Constitution. They frequently see the Constitution as a piece of paper, as a piece of parchment, something that has either failed to defend itself or that has authorized the government that we have, which is unfair. But it can get pretty deep. We can talk very simply about, groups like Nick Fuentes' groypers, who are very, they claim to be very pro-traditional Catholic. They claim to be very anti-Jewish, openly anti-Jewish. Many of them, not just in that group, but associated, also flirt with kind of pro-Nazi propaganda and memes.
Well,
but they're a much softer...
Oh my God! They post... Guys! The groypers sometimes post pictures of Hitler for fun! Can you imagine? Can you imagine posting a picture of Hitler for fun? And to trigger people on the internet? Guys, did you know that sometimes the groypers, they like to troll people for fun and for entertainment because it's funny. Those woke assholes are trolling us with pictures of Hitler, guys. What the fuck?
Where it's not necessarily blame everything on the Jews. My life isn't going well because of the Jews. There are softer versions that point out that the best way to understand critical race theory is exactly the way critical race theory wants conservatives to understand it, which is an attack on white people. So it's got the same woke victim mentality about whites.
James says that critical race theory is an attack on white people. Pop quiz for my chat. What is critical race theory an attack on? Yeah, James Lindsay thinks that centrist Republican from the 60s is what we need right now. What is classical liberalism, or excuse me, what is critical race theory an attack on, guys? Yeah, critical race theory is not an attack on white people, James. Critical race theory is an attack on capitalism. It's an attack on capitalism. It is explicitly about capitalism, which is defined as private property ownership. Whiteness is code word for capitalism. It is explicitly a fucking attack on capitalism. James is still lying about this to people because lying about this pays his bills. It is an attack on capitalism. Carlin can define capitalism in very simple terms because she is secure in her research on like that. Yeah, that's actually true. Capitalism defined by the woke left is private property ownership. Private property means your ability to own a home, your ability to own land, your ability to own an apartment rental that you rent out as a landlord, your intellectual property, your ability to own a business, whether that business be large or small. Your parental rights are considered to be a form of private property. Your individual liberties are considered to be a form of private property. What do all these things have in common? It's called bourgeois property. It is a way for you to build wealth that you can pass down via generations. That is what they want to eliminate, because wealth that can be built and passed down via generations creates inequities in society. And the only way and inequities means it creates a hierarchy between people who have stuff and people who don't have stuff. That's what capitalism does. It creates hierarchies, oppressor versus oppressed, bourgeois versus proletariat, owner versus owned. And the only way to get rid of inequities is to get rid of capitalism entirely, which balances out the hierarchy. James does not know how to explain what I just said.
About straight men, about Christians.
No, wrong.
There's an article I read recently talking about the so-called woke right that was written back in May, published on the American Reformer by a fellow named C.J. Engel, who I would identify as being on the woke right. He refers to it as a new Christian right that is explicitly...
James is citing an article by someone about the woke right that he identifies the author of the article as being on the woke right. Okay.
Not liberal, that explicitly, in his own words, has woke up to the fact that a manufactured post-World War II liberal consensus was forced upon society, and that Mr. Conservative Bill Buckley went around, and his job was to edge out the true right, which is now awakening. So there would be this mainstream but milquetoast conservative movement that was really neocons that had absolutely nothing to do with true conservatism or true rightism, right-wing.
What is true conservatism? Because it's not fucking classical liberalism, James. I do not want the right to be classically fucking liberal. A classical liberal right means the left wins. This is why I go after James Lindsay. This is not a petty internet feud. This is a very, very real ideological difference. I care about defeating the left. I care about beating back the communist cultural revolution in this country. James Lindsay cares about money and fucking internet clout, and that is it. Because the only way that we beat back the socialist, communist, Marxist left in this country is we fucking acknowledge that classical liberalism is one of the things that landed us in this position in the first place, and that might not be nice for people to hear, but that's just simply the truth. When we, and listen, in my personal heart of hearts, I'm an anarcho-capitalist. I'm literally fucking, I don't want the government to exist. That's in my heart of hearts, though. I think that's a beautiful philosophy. But when you encounter a scenario where that philosophy cannot work, then you have to be a fucking adult and say, you know what? You don't always get what you want. Life is unfair, and sometimes you need to do what is required to solve a problem, even if that is not the thing that you want to do. I would love nothing more than to see a roadmap to using libertarianism or anarcho-capitalism in order to prevent a far left takeover of this country. I would love that. I don't see that as a possibility. I don't think it's going to happen. And the same and for the same reason that classical liberalism is not going to stop it. Because the thing of it is, if you're expecting the left if you're expecting to beat the left in a battle of ideas, where everyone comes to the debate table and they all wear their tuxedo like in the Oxford Union, and they all debate based on the merits of the ideas. Do you know what's going to happen? While the left is pretending to debate with you, which they're not even really going to do that because they don't really give a fuck, they're going to be in the background continuing to advance their ideology, push into the institutions, take over as many things as possible, destabilize as many things as possible. The left is never going to stop. And a classical liberal debate about the left is never going to prevent them from keep making progress. In fact, the classical liberal debate, when James gets all dressed up in his tuxedo and he goes and debates in the Oxford Union, darling. Like, when that happens, James is actually running cover for the real left because it's a distraction. James is literally the magician's assistant that's twirling around in her sparkly fucking dress with her boobs out and her butt out over here, while the real far left is doing the fucking magic trick over here. This is where the trick is happening. This is where the problem is. James Lindsay's dancing around the fucking stage. Over here, he's distracting everyone. He's running cover for the magician who is doing the real magic trick. And again, this is not something that, like, I actually came to this after a lot of thought. This wasn't something I just came to. This wasn't something that I was like, oh, I want to appeal to Nick Fuentes and the groypers, so I'm going to say I'm a fucking fascist. No, this was after literally years of thinking about this and being like, how does this work? How does this work? I also tried to organize within the Libertarian Party. I tried to be a part of that. Let me tell you what. Libertarians are their own worst goddamn enemy. The Libertarian Party right now is almost in bankruptcy. The whole thing is failing. It is filled with infighting. They can't do fucking anything. They're bickering over who the fucking presidential candidate. Like, the Libertarian Party is a goddamn disgrace. So you're expecting me to say, this is the thing that's going to save us all. No, it's not. I tried for years. In that system. I know all the players in that system. I know what it's like to try to wrangle libertarians to do anything. They're not going to do it. And so even if anarcho-capitalism is a beautiful philosophy, which it is not realistic in the real world to say that we are going to implement that to save us. And it is also not realistic to say classical liberalism, if we just get dressed up in a tuxedo and we go and debate these things with our pinky finger out and our glass of whiskey and our cigars. Like that's not realistic to save us either. There are real fucking problems in this world that are going to impact real people. And based on my read of the far left, and I've watched more far left training over the past 3 years than anyone in the fucking world. And if you think I haven't, you give me a name of someone who's watched more than I do. Give me a name. Because I'd like to talk to them, and that's real. But based on my read of the far left, we've got maybe 15 years left before they actually try to violently overthrow the U.S. government. That is the pace that we're working on. It is going to happen in our lifetimes. And if people don't start waking the fuck up, that there is a real fucking problem, and they are organized, and they are making progress every goddamn day. And every day that we have to listen to this woke right bullshit or infighting on Twitter or whatever the fuck complaints that people have, every single day that we are distracted by this bullshit, and every single time that James Lindsay lies to people over and over and over and over and over again about this is really the biggest problem, guys, the woke right is the biggest problem. The biggest problem is that we're not classically liberal enough. They're making progress, and they're just gaining and gaining and gaining and gaining and gaining. Do not listen to anyone on the right that says, we're winning, bro. Pinky swear, trust me, we're winning. They're so full of shit, it's not even funny. And anyone that watches the real far left with me knows this. And if you don't believe me, come to a Socialism Saturday. Come to one of my normal streams about the left. I will show you explicitly what the left is saying. I will show you explicitly how they're organizing. This is stuff that James Lindsay doesn't even know exists. They are winning. We are in a lot of fucking trouble. They are making direct attacks on parental rights all over the country right now, which means they're trying to take your kids away from you. Now. Currently, in the real fucking world. And it's only going to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And I'm sitting over here trying to ring the alarm bell and say, have you assholes actually fucking looked at this fucking problem? And the retards on Twitter are going, she's crazy. Don't look at her video content. She's crazy. Fuck you guys. That's how I feel about this. Fuck all of you who have this evidence right at your fingertips. I tried to tell you for fucking years, and you couldn't be bothered to watch a primary source video because you're too busy reading on Twitter to feed your goddamn outrage addiction. Oh my gosh, she's so crazy. She's so crazy. Carlin sent me a DM with a video. That bitch is crazy. Go fuck yourselves. and they think Trumpy Dumpy is going to save them, and that's all better humor than SNL. Yeah, exactly. So, I don't even know what started me on that rant, but that's how I feel. There are real problems in the world. If people don't start waking up, listen, man, I don't have kids. So, I don't have any spawn that's going to suffer when the left does eventually win and takes over fucking everything. But a lot of you do. A lot of you do have kids. And if people don't start waking up and doing something to push back against this problem, it's not just you that's going to suffer. It's your kids that are going to suffer more. And it's your grandkids that are going to suffer more than that. And James likes to say that I'm psychologically manipulating people when I say that to join my fucking cult. Nah, man, that's telling the truth. That's telling the truth. And that is a truth that people need to hear. And that is a truth that people need to be responsive to. Because if you're not willing to fight for your kids, then what the fuck are you doing? What the fuck are you doing? Hinge back into reality. It's time to grow up.
Politics, and that they've awoken to this and they've pierced the veil. In other words, woke up to that there is a whole new set of politics that we could be looking into that are these deeper conservative politics from bygone eras that were pushed out of the picture that they're now resurrecting, which include conservatives such as Edmund Burke and Burnham, also to a degree G.K. Chesterton and Belloc. But then you start getting into kind of some stranger names like Carl Schmitt, who was the crown.
Hang on, I got a super chat from Milo. I should get the super chat counter on the thing. James Lindsay is 100% admitting he's a progressive liberal Democrat infiltrator here. All conservatives should not trust him anymore. He is the total opposite of conservative. You know what's even more than that? James is a fucking atheist that spends most of his time advising fucking churches. And it's like, why in the world? Why in the world are churches hiring him? I don't understand it at all.
Jurist of the Third Reich, who put forth an idea of an unbound executive. In other words, that the chief executive should have no boundaries on his execution of power, which is in direct conflict with the U.S. constitutional model, what we have in our president. Also, this idea that politics boils down to friend versus enemy, so it's a conflict-driven model.
Listen, so LaQuisha says, and I don't disagree with this, I agree classical liberalism can't be a solution anymore. I just don't know what is. I'm nervous about appealing to authoritarianism to defeat the left, but I do not. Yeah, I mean, LaQuisha's, I'm not unsympathetic to this idea, bro. I'm really not. I'm not unsympathetic to this at all, and it's like one of those things, right, where I don't see any other way. And that actually makes me incredibly, incredibly sad. I don't see any other way. The left is not going to stop. They're just not. And we don't have enough people on our side to fight back. And this is why I do what I do. This is why I've been screaming about this shit for years. This is why I spend 6 days a week teaching this stuff to be able to try to show as many people as I can. And I just run into these fucking roadblocks over and over and over again of these ridiculous people on Twitter who are just hell-bent on undermining everything to maintain their fucking gravy train and maintain their clout and all this stuff. And it's just like, I don't see any other way. I really just don't. And you know what? It makes me so angry. I am so angry at the people who've let this happen. But I don't know any other way than to figure out a way to find the correct dictator, for lack of a better term. Like, to find the correct sort of dictator to lead us all. Find the correct Catholic king. I'm even open to that, honestly, and I say that as like a non-Christian. It's like, maybe Nick Fuentes is actually right about that. Maybe it would make things better. Maybe it would. I don't know. That's not realistic, of course. That's not going to happen in our lifetimes, and I know that's not realistic, but it's just like, you know, it is what it is.
Have people that are dipping into further kind of right wing is a way to put it, but almost
that's not-
semi-fascist thinkers like Leo Strauss. He's not too much on the
Why do I
fascist
have a
side, but he's
banner?
definitely
There we go.
kind of dialectical and Hegelian in his construction. But then outright stuff like Francisco Franco and Julius Evola, who is an outright fascist philosopher. You see support for Franco, you see support for Mussolini as an answer to communism. So they fashion themselves as this kind of
How so,
anti-communist
James?
broad coalition.
How so?
It doesn't have a singular definition. There are Christian nationalists who are Protestants. They're the Deus Vult, as they call themselves.
You think that the groypers are an anti-communism coalition? You know, a lot of people think that I've cozied up to Nick Fuentes for internet clout, and that's just not true. There are groypers who look at what I do. There absolutely are. There are groypers that I've taught a lot of stuff. There are groypers who show up for my feed every now and again. Like, sometimes there are groypers who share my content, and I appreciate all of that. But if you think that the groypers are, like, involved in an anti-communism thing, like, the groypers don't really even care about that. The groypers don't embrace capitalism. They just don't. And now their definition of capitalism is different than the left's definition of capitalism, and that should be acknowledged. But, like, James doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Kind of hardcore tradcaths. I don't think that those two groups of people, theologically at least, get along very well. There's a kind of contingent of Orthodox Christians, which is still a completely different set. I think there are a lot who are kind of Nietzschean atheists who bend hyper-conservative, who are pushing in this direction, who, again, don't theologically square with this. Some of them are openly monarchists, such as the neo-reactionary movement and whatever we're seeing from this group of Brits called the Lotus Eaters. But what they share in common is that they woke up, who, again, don't theologize.
Lotus Eaters named. Lotus Eaters named. So again, everyone that is not a classical liberal is on the woke right, according to James Lindsay.
Logically square with this. Some of them are openly monarchists, such as the neo-reactionary movement and whatever we're seeing from this group of Brits called the
This man has over 500,000 followers on Twitter. He is lifted up at Turning Point USA events and speaks at Moms for Liberty events all over the country. He reaches millions and millions and millions of people. He is not insignificant.
Lotus Eaters. But what they share in common is that they woke up to the belief that there has been a manufactured false consciousness of humanity following World War II to edge out true conservatism, which seems to have an awful lot of bleed over with fascism, and that they are going to be the vanguard of bringing that philosophy back to the political square in the West, and openly, excitedly pushing to get rid of the classical liberal model enshrined in the U.S. Constitution, Declaration of Independence, and Bill of Rights.
Okay. The classical liberalism really was embraced by pretty much all Americans at one point, right?
Oh,
I mean,
my
the Constitution and classical liberalism. Hey
guys. Classical liberalism used to be embraced by all Americans. Exactly the fucking problem. Exactly the fucking problem. These two things are true at once. The left has been working on overthrowing the United States government since the 1930s. All Americans used to embrace classical liberalism. Wasn't classical liberalism great? The left made all of its advances in its Marxist cultural revolution during the heyday of classical liberalism, when all Americans embraced classical liberalism. That is exactly the motherfucking point. That is exactly the point. Classical liberalism is what put us where we are now. And if you want to be an adult about the situation and you want to solve the problem, you need to acknowledge that you cannot do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again and expect a different result. But classical liberalism will be different this time, guys. Classical liberalism will be different. Real classical liberalism has never been tried. See, James, we can do this too. You guys are effectively saying, real classical liberalism has never been tried, guys. Don't worry, we'll do it differently this time. Why does that sound familiar to me?
I always consider myself, I used to say I was more of a libertarian. Now I'm like, well, maybe I'm just more of a constitutionalist. And that's now been put into like a far right category, which I think is ridiculous because it used to be just what Americans believed. But do you find that all these terms and
Hang on. Super chat from Rottweiler. Thank you, Rottweiler. Classical liberalism only works on an individual level, not as a solution to communism, which also rejects liberalism. Unfortunately, authoritarianism is a Hail Mary pass. You can have a Marcus Aurelius or end up with a Caligula. Yeah, and that's kind of like, I agree. That is kind of like where we are at the moment, isn't it? It's like you can have a Marcus Aurelius or you can end up with a Caligula, and who knows? And sometimes sometimes the Hail Mary pass works and sometimes it doesn't. But, from where I'm sitting, I am more than willing to try the Hail Mary pass because I really do genuinely believe this, guys, and I've laid out my reasons why for this. I really believe that we are completely fucked as a country and that the left will win in our lifetimes if we don't try something like a Hail Mary pass. I really do. Now, am I going to try to overthrow things? No, I'm not. I'm going to sit in my freaking second bedroom and I'm going to stream about socialism on the internet. I'm going to try to teach as many people as possible. I'm going to try to train as many people as possible to see the left in the way that I see them so that people know what's going on. But, am I going to actually go out and try to, do something? No, I'm not going to try to install a monarchy in the United States. Don't worry, FBI. I'm not trying to overthrow the government. But I do think that we need to, call a spade a spade.
that people, like just conservative, for example, has all these different meanings to all these different people that it almost hurts itself to even call yourself a conservative.
Yeah, it can. It's complicated. I find it very difficult for myself. Of course, I don't come from, I didn't grow up on the right or the
You're
conservative.
not a conservative, James.
I definitely, when I spent 13 years in college, didn't consider myself conservative and became less and less so as I spent 13 years in a university system. And like a lot of people, I had this kind of gradual awakening through the 2010s, I think ahead of a lot of people, but not as fast as people. You know, a lot of conservatives who listen to Rush Limbaugh, for example, were way ahead of my awakening, and people who listened to him anyway who weren't conservative to begin with. And there are a lot of people. Thomas Sowell was way ahead of that curve. But through the 2010s, I woke up to woke. I realized that woke is not liberal in any way whatsoever. I identified myself as pretty classically liberal, probably ultimately constitutionalist, but with a lot of progressive contamination. And I started to understand that the progressive movement itself was a problem. So I have had to try to articulate to groups, because I speak to a lot of conservative audiences now. Like, they're like, what are you? And I'm like, I don't know. But what I end up saying is that I think I'm very constitutionally conservative. In other words, let's conserve the Constitution. And it's so what you would say is constitutionalist. I think I'm very strongly that. I'm much more fiscally conservative than I was before. I'm maybe moderately, but not significantly more socially conservative than I was before. I'm certainly not a progressive in socialism, or in the social sphere, I should say. But it's a fraught term is what I'm basically getting at. And so I am concerned that it's such an...
So James, who has never been on the right, who is an atheist, who is not really that socially conservative, is deeply concerned that conservatives are calling themselves conservatives and acting with conservative values instead of classical liberal values. Okay.
Imprecise term, as you're indicating, that it means so many things to so many people that it's a bit of a problem. What I'm particularly worried about, though, is that these people that you've asked me about, the so-called woke right, and like I said, it's complicated because there's a lot of factions. It hasn't, like with the woke, they
James doesn't even understand the factions.
They kind of, did power struggles, and by 2015, 2020 for sure, there was kind of like one thing that was woke, and it's this identity politics. It's very communist in its organization. All the other factions, the progressives, the softies, all kind of got kicked out. Well, they got
That's not
far
actually
right, as a
true,
matter of
but
fact.
okay.
And so now you have this faction on the right wing side of politics that is explicitly rightist.
When James says there's only one faction on the left and that's woke, that's not true. We watch different factions on the left all the time. Most of the left are Leninists, they're Marxist-Leninists, they're Stalinists on the left. There are all sorts of different varieties of communists. Like there are some queer Marxists, there are some communists that don't believe in queer at all and believe it's not communism. There is a wide variety of points of views on the left that James just doesn't know about because he's never bothered to look.
In the same way that these woke leftists are explicitly leftist. And not all of them even identify as conservative. You have, for example, the guy who wrote the book called The Case for Christian Nationalism. His name is Stephen Wolfe, and he tweeted at one point that he's not conservative because he's looked at critical theory and has decided to adopt many of its methodologies for his own conclusions. So same methods, different approach. So this is why I said it depends on what you mean by woke. If you think woke means awakening to a consciousness, which is what the word literally means, then these people qualify as woke, even though they push traditional conservative ideas in seeming. But if you think of it as a operating system for politics, how you're going to engage in politics as a general strategy, then they also meet the definition of woke, at least this Stephen Wolfe character does, when he says, I've adopted the critical methods in order to push my own conclusions. Another philosopher in that field is Patrick Deneen, who I have a pretty positive relationship with, at least personally. He's in the school of thought of Leo Strauss. He's a philosopher, I think a professor at Notre Dame at any rate. And he's a very nice man. He's very thoughtful. He is very sincere in his work and his critiques. I don't agree with his analysis, but it's academic, so there's this kind of space for it. But Patrick has said openly also that we can draw from Marxist technique and tactic and theory without going to the same conclusions that Marxist.
Yes, James, we can draw from Marxist technique and tactic. Do you want to know why? Because the left is fucking organized. And the left knows how to get shit done. And the left knows how to advance an agenda. And that doesn't mean we embrace Marxism. That means we look at what they're doing. We look at the fact that, oh, wait, the left controls all of society. How did they get to that place? How did we end up here? What techniques is the left doing to take over all of society and screw everything up? And maybe, James, maybe can we learn from those techniques? And maybe when things make sense, we can say, oh yeah, that works really good and that works really good. And maybe we should try that for our side for once. For instance, the communist left focuses heavily on education. Education is one of their main things that they do. And this is why we have so many far leftist videos to watch, because they really believe in educating people about the development of communism, the history of communism. The Russian Revolution is one of their favorite things to talk about. All the different aspects. They do educational trainings and conferences and events with each other all the time. Book publishing is a way that a lot of leftist groups make a lot of money. So education is the center of what they do. I figured that out. And I said, you know what? Maybe we should be running classes and doing trainings on what the left is actually doing and thinking and stuff like that. And so I took inspiration from the left and said, maybe education should be like the backbone of what we do. And that is why I spend 6 days a week trying to educate people about what the left is actually fucking doing, what their language means, how they're showing up in the world, how they're organizing, how they're structured, who the players are, what the tactics are, how to get around them, how to subvert them, all this shit. And people might not like my tone, and they might not like my attitude, and they might not like my hair, and they might not like that I have tattoos, and they might not like anything single thing about me. But you can't fucking deny the amount of content I turn out educating people about what the left is doing, and that is specifically because education is the backbone of what the left is doing. It is how they've gotten so powerful. It is how they are so cohesive. People complain all the time. They're like, the left walks in lockstep. The right just fucks around and infights. Do you know why they do that? Do you know why the left does that? Because they spend hours and hours and hours every single week educating each other. They teach each other things. They get on the same page through these classes and events and conferences and strategies. That's why they're in lockstep, because they put education as the backbone of what we're doing. I have been trying to do this for fucking years, and all I run into is bullshit and nonsense primarily caused by James. So yes, I absolutely believe we have things we can learn from the left. I absolutely believe that we have things that we can adapt and use to our purposes. It's James that wants to fuck around and go, why doesn't everyone become a classical liberal?
Just make. And so in some sense, there's almost this conservatism or fake conservatism, this rightism is the right word for it, this rightism that's borrowing from the tactics and techniques of leftism in order to push its own grab for power. And I find that being explicitly anti-liberal or post-liberal, in other words, against the classical liberal constitutional system, makes me fairly concerned about that movement.
Well, do they, and this is where it gets into, they consider themselves, or they call themselves conservatives.
No, they don't.
I don't know what they are, but do they believe in freedom?
Yes.
They are skeptical of freedom.
Oh, come
in particular.
on.
They are they're skeptical of the idea that allowing as much freedom as we have.
Do you know what they do believe in? They believe in responsibility. They believe in responsibility. They may not believe in like unmitigated freedom, but they believe that, you know, and maybe I'm paraphrasing, and please correct me if I'm wrong or if I don't word this perfectly. They believe that it's not the same as collectivism. It's not the same as on the left. They believe that people have a responsibility to the community that they're in, to be good fucking people, to not fuck everything up. And it's like this, we're talking like basic stuff here, you know? And I actually like the responsibility aspect. It's like, yeah, you know what? We should be a little bit more responsible with what we've been given. We should be a little bit more responsible with how we steward the country. We all should be a little bit more responsible. Like, the schools are all fucked up. Kids aren't learning how to read and write and do math or do anything at all. Yeah, responsibility is freedom with a purpose. Our entire world is getting fucked up, and James wants to like, everyone should be free to do whatever they want. Okay, well, it's a strategy, James.
Allowed.
We don't always get what we want. Life is not always fair.
Society.
We don't always
so
get a
what
pony.
Their perspective, and again, there's kind of a multitude of them, but just to summarize, the perspective is that if you give people more freedom than they have responsibility, then what they'll do is misuse their freedom. If we allow people to talk about whatever they want, then you're going to end up with communist professors, and the communist professors are going to poison the minds of younger people.
True.
If you allow people to agitate for whatever they want or spend money on whatever they want, then they're going to, some people will, like George Soros, will spend money on a variety of nonprofit organizations and funding an awful lot of people to do things that don't contribute, in their opinion, to the common good. So they often brand themselves as common good conservatives as opposed to as freedom lovers. You're
literally talking about what fucking happened, bro. You're literally outlining how the left is winning. Well, people just got to, you know, kids got to be allowed to learn in school that they weren't a boy or a girl. And that's just freedom, according to James. That's just freedom. You know, it was allowed that teachers in schools taught kids that they are not a boy or a girl. And now we have school districts where upwards of 40% of fucking kids believe that they're not a man or a woman, and they believe that the gender binary is not a real thing. But that's just freedom, guys. We have to be allowed to teach kids these things, you know? It's just preparing them for the world. You know, we have to be allowed to write books about queer ideology. We have to be allowed to teach that communism is great. Do you guys know that they used to teach in school that communism was bad? I know because I have the textbooks. There used to be little textbooks that they would give kids in schools. This is like back in like the 60s, or like they actually used to teach in schools, communism is bad, don't do that shit. And now look what's happened. Anytime you see anti-racist education or equity in schools, that is anti-capitalist education. That is pro-communist education. The schools are literally indoctrinating an entire fucking generation of communist activists. Like right now. Who do you think is running the college protests? And you're going to tell me, well, guys, freedom means that they should be able to teach everything they want, and that's just, the way it goes, and, we have to accept that as part of our freedom. No, we don't. No, we don't. I don't need to accept that that autistic children in sex ed class are being taught that they're queer when they're fucking 8 years old. Why are they even having a sex ed class when they're 8 years old anyway? I don't have to accept that. And quite frankly, James and the Moms for Liberty have been pathetic in their ability to get this shit out of schools. They have been literally raising money, tens of millions of dollars, for years and years and years and years and years. And on their victory board, they've gotten maybe a couple of books banned from schools. Congratulations, you raised tens of millions of dollars. You run hundreds of school board candidates all over the country. Have you banned queer theory in schools? Have you banned social emotional learning in schools? Have you banned anti-racism in schools? Have you banned critical race theory in schools? No. No. In fact, it's being taught more than ever. So all of those tens of millions of dollars, wasted. Completely gone. With nothing to show for it. But guys, we have freedom and we should be able to be free to teach whatever we want. Yeah, okay.
And they tend to be very skeptical of liberty and freedom. So I wouldn't say that they hate it. I would just say that they're skeptical of it.
Well, and the problem is that their common good ideas may not be really what's in the common good, right? I mean, we just went through this whole exercise of locking people down because a whole group of people in power sold to people that doing those lockdowns was for the common good, when in fact it did the exact opposite. And the history is littered with people.
I'm so glad I didn't agree to interview with this woman. I'm so glad.
And it does the exact opposite. And that's the whole argument, right?
Yeah, right. So I don't mean this in the sense that it's famously said, but sic semper tyrannis, thus always with tyrants. Tyrants believe most of the time that they have a vision of the good. I would argue that since what communism itself is looking for is in fact that all private property is abolished and replaced by something that they call communal property or even commonwealth.
I'm sorry. What was that moment? What was that? What was that? You're fucking welcome. For people who don't know, part of the reason that we have been going to war with James Lindsay for a year is that James used to refuse to say the word capitalism. He refused to say it. And he refused to acknowledge that the left defines capitalism as private property ownership. He refused to do both these things. That was our original war with James. Was say capitalism, you lying fucking shill. And tell people what capitalism actually means. Now, James still doesn't know exactly what it means. James actually just defined private property incorrectly. James just defined private property incorrectly. But you know what? A year's worth of haranguing and we got him to say it. Finally. Fucking finally. Let's hear that again.
Since what communism itself is looking for is in fact that all private property is abolished and replaced by...
Well, let's just stop there. What communism is looking for, it is true that all private property would be abolished. Again, private property is defined as bourgeois property. It's property that you can use to create generational wealth. That means your ability to own a home, your ability to own land, your ability to own an apartment that you rent out as a landlord, your ability to own intellectual property, your private businesses, whether those private businesses be big or small. Your parental rights are considered to be a form of private property. That's why the left is always attacking parental rights, because they consider it to be a form of private property, because it means you can pass down generational wealth. They also do want to destroy the nuclear family because they believe the nuclear family is the literal means of reproduction of capitalism. Your individual liberties, your freedom of speech, your freedom of religion, all that stuff too are considered to be forms of private property. That's a little bit more looser. We hardly ever hear them talk about that, but they have talked about it. We have it on video. That's what the left wants to abolish. They want to replace it with a form of collective ownership. This is what equity is, where everyone has access to all of the resources. Everyone would be allocated a home because there's no more home ownership. You don't get to pick out where you live. You're going to be allocated a home. Everyone would be allocated, like land would go along with that. No more private ownership of land. All of the land comes under the collective care of the individual. Everyone would be required to go through compulsory K through 12 public education. No more private schools, no more homeschooling, no more charter schools. Everyone would be required to have universal health care, which would be free, abortion on demand, free and unlimited, all that stuff. Trans surgery as much as you want, all that stuff. But free unlimited health care on demand, no private doctors, no private insurance. You get whatever the state says you get. Everyone would be allocated energy that would be provided by the state, no private energy providers. That means the state gets to decide if you heat your home in the winter. The state gets to decide how much gas you get to travel in your car. The state gets to decide whether you travel at all. Everyone would be, and this is the scariest one, food would be controlled by the state. So no more private food ownership. The left considers farmers to be the original capitalists because farmers were the original people who privatized the land to make money under capitalism because they had to privatize the land to farm it, to sell stuff off it, stuff like that. So farmers are actually considered to be the original form of private property. So that's going to be abolished. That means the state takes over the production of all food. That means if you don't work and if you don't do what the state wants you to do, you don't eat. In addition to that, all money would be abolished. All banks would be abolished. They even want to abolish the private family kitchen. They even want to have all babies born outside the womb, because if you have all babies born outside the womb, we have birthing pods, and we have all, this is all documented. I'm not making any of this shit up. We have this all documented with primary source evidence. If you have babies born outside the womb, that means you're degendering birth, which means that you are eliminating gender as a thing, which means you're eliminating the gender binary and all this stuff. That's a little bit more of an advanced concept. I'm not going to go into it a lot right now unless people have questions, but that is what we're talking about. When the left says abolish private property, they mean everything. They mean everything. Let's see what James says it means.
By something that they call communal property or even commonwealth, that they are also, they sometimes call it the greater good, but they're still pushing for a common good in their sight. And I think that this is
no definition.
To get deeply philosophical about it, I think that there is a kind of deep idealism underlying both of these kinds of factions. They have an ideal vision for what society should look like, and of course somehow they are so elect as to be able to tell everybody else what that society is supposed to look like and how it's supposed to work. And that, of course, is built up with all this kind of self-serving avenues to power. And it'll be in the common good, I guess, until it isn't. And history, like you said, is littered with examples, nominally left-wing and right-wing both. Again, those are matters of how we conceive of these topics,
Right, yeah.
where people thought that they could just order society, whether we're talking about the communists, whether we're talking about the fascists, whether we're talking about Oliver Cromwell's Puritans, which was kind of neither of those, whether we're talking about the French Jacobins, whether we're talking about the White Terror and the Thermidorian reaction after that. Again and again, history is littered with kind of the corpses of the people who are victims of would-be tyrants who have decided that they understand the common good well enough to order it for everyone else.
If I was your mother and you had a drug...
No
this
commercial.
idea lurking behind all of this of cultural hegemony, which was first outlined by the Marxist Antonio Gramsci.
Hey guys, if you're pretty pleased with the fact that I don't make you watch commercials and I don't do annoying ad reads, how about you send in a super chat to articulate your appreciation? Because I only make money when you guys value what I'm doing and you value me owning James Lindsay all over the internet, because he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. But I don't make you guys suffer through ads or ad reads or anything like that. So, you know, I mean, just throw in $5 if you feel like it.
Gramsci in the 1910s. And that's the idea that there's kind of a way that we're going to do things in society. We have a cultural view, or a broadly, like you said earlier, it's kind of what all Americans believe. And it seems to me that these people, wherever they are in their specific politics, communist, fascist, Puritan, whatever it happens to be, as some examples we gave, that they see cultural hegemony existing and not under their control, and they don't like it. So they wish to control the cultural hegemony of whatever society they find themselves in. And so that impulse to control, or if we're a little bit more clear-eyed and brutal about it, libido dominandi, the lust to dominate, kind of
lust
starts
to
to shine
dominate.
through. And of course, that's a very
We
Nietzschean
are
idea
so fucked.
that it never works out. The American founding principle is the opposite. Every man is actually prone to these kinds of things, but none of us actually has divine insight. Therefore, none of us actually has any special granted authority to rule over others. So, in order to hold political or social authority, we have to earn it, voluntarily consent to it, and that it will be temporary. So, in politics, we use elections. In economics, we use voluntary exchange. If it's like, you're going to submit yourself to your personal trainer, you voluntarily decided that this personal trainer would be able to get your fitness goals for you. So you pay that person money and agree for them to tell you what to do, at which point you're welcome to walk anytime you don't like what he's saying anymore. So we have this completely different system in the kind of classical American liberal approach, which denies that claim to special authority and thus the ability to use it to dominate others.
Well, in classical liberalism, and this is where I think both sides actually get an argument, is that when we don't have a justice system that operates properly when somebody is harmed. So freedom is good, but if you harm someone, then you should have your freedom taken or something. We need to deal with that, right? The fact that our justice system isn't dealing properly when people are harmed gives freedom a bad name.
Yes, absolutely. A compromised or corrupted judicial system is basically that's your canary dying in the coal mine, saying that your society is about to go sideways really badly. And when you have that, people start to freak out. A lot of people misunderstand the purpose, both of the police, which is criminal justice more broadly, but also the courts. And in a classical liberal system, literally the point of the whole criminal justice enterprise is to prevent mob violence as the answer to getting justice. And so if that system is corrupted and it's not achieving a mutually agreed upon method of serving imperfect, but at least hopefully, ideally supposed to be impartial justice.
Yeah. Hey, James, how does the left define the police, James? Do you know? Do you have any idea? I'll tell you, the left defines the police as the enforcers of capitalism, the managers of private property. That's why the left wants to abolish the police. That's what abolition is. Almost anytime you hear the left say the term abolition, they are talking about abolishing the police, defunding the police, defunding the prison industrial complex. They want to do that because they believe that the police were descended from slave owners, or slave catchers rather, and their job was to literally catch the private property that was running away. And that is the original version of the modern day police. I'm not saying I believe this. I'm saying this is what the left believes. That's where all the abolish the police stuff comes from. James never explains that to people, so they don't know.
What's going to happen is stuff is going to start to go off the rails. People are going to seek justice through other means than the courts or the law enforcement can give it to them. And in countries, it's to some degree in the United States. We shouldn't deny it, but it's far worse right now in the UK, for example.
Yeah,
the two-tier policing, and you can see how that's rapidly heating up. The entire, if you think of it kind of like as that's like a fire that's just boiling the pot of the population of the UK, and it's only a matter of time until it explodes. And so, of course, you look at somebody like Keir Starmer, and you look at his history. He's got history with communism. He's got history with the Fabian Society, and you almost have to conclude they understand this, and they're doing it to a purpose. They need the reaction in order.
Can we all just acknowledge for a second that even if Chris Brunet tried to drive, even if Chris Brunet had not gone back to James Lindsay with his tail between his legs to say, James, I'm so sorry, I ever questioned your veracity, James. Can we just all acknowledge that even if Chris Brunet had not done that, there would still be no universe in which Chris Brunet could embarrass James Lindsay as much as I can. There would be no universe in which Chris Brunet can drive James Lindsay insane as much as I can. Like, if he actually had that goal, teaming up with me and my community, because we've been, again, it's not just me, it's been a lot of people, have been working on this for a real long time. So this is how we know that people like Chris Brunet are not serious about their goals. They're just trying to generate outrage and clicks and responses and get a nice big payday from Twitter. That's all they're doing. That's all it is.
Order to justify further crackdowns by the state. And then you think, well, maybe that's a play that's happening more broadly. And now we come to the point of why I'm concerned about a woke right, which obviously doesn't have its hands on too many significant levers of power and mostly is a bunch of video game dorks who play on the internet and say trash talk and put memes until they drive themselves insane and become little Nazis.
James, if it's just a bunch of video game dorks, then why the fuck are you worried about them in the first place? Do you know what I'm not worried about? Video game dorks. I will spend no time crusading against video game dorks. I will not tell video game dorks that they are literally worshiping Satan when they're doing a prayer to Archangel Michael. I won't even pay any mind, even if that video game dork has a really big live stream that he does on Rumble every single night. I will pay no mind to it if they're just video game dorks. So what's really going on? Could it be that James has masters in the form of Turning Point USA that pay James a lot of money, that keep James in good speaking gigs, that really don't like those video game dorks? Because those video game dorks are a constant thorn in the side of Turning Point USA. Could it be? And by the way, Turning Point USA has told people, you cannot talk to Nick Fuentes. Alex Stein, there was just a clip of Alex Stein the other day. Alex Stein was saying, yo, like, I got a phone call from Turning Point USA when I dared to talk to Nick Fuentes, and they were like, you just can't do that, bro. Ashley St. Clair got fired from Turning Point for taking a picture with Nick Fuentes. And so now James, who speaks for Turning Point USA, do you think he really doesn't have any vested interest in chilling out this woke right bullshit? Where he says that video game dorks are going to be the downfall of us all. If they were actually just video game dorks, James wouldn't be doing this.
That's right. And we're seeing really bad behavior on all sides. I got to say, all sides, where,
Yes,
I'm really into freedom, but I'm seeing some bad
really
side
into freedom,
things and say,
guys.
okay, you, for example, okay, and I know this is a downfall of the right media. They're supporting the Tate brothers, for example. The Tate brothers have been caught being with a 15.
Yeah, can we just talk about that for a second? Listen. The Tate brothers are pornographers and basically human traffickers who lead an insanely immoral lifestyle. And I'm not saying I'm the beacon of like moral virtue or anything like that. But can we just acknowledge that it is kind of weird how much support the Tate brothers get? Because they're literal fucking pornographers. Like, really? I thought we wanted to ban porn. Shit, man. I don't even care about, like, porn is so gross. So I actually have, like, given up on the banning porn argument. I really have. But, like, if you want to ban porn, can you also acknowledge that supporting the Tate brothers might come across as, like, a smidge hypocritical?
They're old girls and they have all their videos in their own language saying all these things that are really human trafficking or could be, but they're still promoting them. So freedom, that's where people are pushing back and are completely disgusted, and it's imploding. And I want you to speak to this because it's important. It's imploding the pushback against what we're seeing on the left.
Yeah, I can't speak for the Tate brothers specifically, but
But that's one example.
Yeah, exactly. This phenomenon, so let me say it this way. This phenomenon is clearly happening. This is a known counterintelligence programming that you place people who are problems within a movement you wish to discredit.
Guys. Nick Fuentes is
and then you let them be problems and you let that movement uphold them for some bad set of reasons, like maybe they're the only people willing to say these truths. So they say 3 truths, 7 lies, but at least they said the 3 truths and they're a huge problem, and then later you discredit them. These kinds of operations are textbook counterintelligence operations, and their point is to discredit and undermine the movement, also to sow division within a movement. And so
yes, everyone is just trying to undermine James's effort to get classical liberalism adopted by the right. Everyone else is a problem. Everyone who doesn't want the right to be classically liberal is a Fed, guys.
As we just saw with the so-called Tenet media scandal with Lauren Chen at its center, the purpose of that, putatively, according to the Department of Justice, so let's remember that these are allegations, was that the money was being given specifically to conservative programming that was designed to cause division within the conservative movement. And so this is another counterintelligence, bread and butter kind of operation. And I definitely think, I don't know who, I have suspicions, but I don't have any hard evidence. The closest to hard evidence that there is would be this allegation by the Justice Department against Lauren Chen and Tenet Media. But I think that's enough to put together with some common sense that this is definitely happening. We can see with our own eyes that there are these kinds of factions that are stirring up drama. I'm hearing it from churches. I'm hearing it.
Man, I still feel bad for Lauren Chen. Can we all just send prayers to Lauren Chen and her family? Listen, man, I'm not saying that Lauren Chen is like, I mean, she did take money from Russia. She did. And like, you know, am I gonna necessarily co-sign that as something I would do? Well, you know, probably not. Okay, fine, whatever. But can we all just admit that the reason that Lauren Chen is in the position she's in is because she pissed off the wrong people by speaking out against Israel. That's why. The reason that they didn't even bother to defend her, the reason that they didn't say guilty, like that, not guilty until proven innocent. Lauren Chen hasn't been indicted. Lauren Chen hasn't had a trial. Lauren Chen just got wiped off the fucking face of the internet over an accusation made by the Biden Department of Justice. I don't know. I'm old enough to remember when the right was like, innocent until proven guilty, except when it comes to Lauren Chen, right? Except when it comes to Lauren Chen.
From Republican county commissions or Republican regional commissions or state commissions. I'm also seeing it visibly with my own eyes on social media, like I said. But now we have some evidence that this may have actually been the result of either foreign influence operation or something that the State Department constructed to look like a foreign influence operation, something like that. And then there's just communist strategy. I mean, Lenin said the best way to control the opposition is to become the opposition ourselves. And so it's been communist strategy for 100 years to plant subversives within movements that you wish to discredit and to have fall apart. So I think it's...
by the way, James thinks I'm a plant designed to subvert his movement. He really does. James thinks that I am a Gnostic plant that is designed to subvert his movement. No, James, I just disagree with you and think you're an asshole. Where can you even watch Nick Fuentes? That is a really great question. You can watch Nick Fuentes on Rumble and just, you know, I think it's rumble.com/Nick J. Fuentes. Just look him up. He goes live every night. He's supposed to go live at 8 p.m. Central Time, which is 9 p.m. Eastern Time, which is where I am. Sometimes he doesn't always go live at that time, though. So, you know, you got to be flexible. But you can find him on Rumble.
At this point, naive.
And honestly, like, just in case there's anyone watching that's never watched Nick Fuentes and you're like, what the, like, I've heard all this crazy shit about him. Listen, I'm not going to tell you to like Nick Fuentes. Like I said, I disagree with many things that Nick Fuentes says. I don't agree with him across the board on everything. But at least watch him and listen to him. Just give him a chance of listening to him. Not the bullshit. Not the clickbait. Not the outrage porn. Most of the clips that you see of Nick on Twitter that make the rounds, that make him seem like a horrible person, he's doing comedy. He's making a joke. One of the things that I love about the groypers is that they make the outlandish joke to prove that they can make the outlandish joke. They say the offensive thing to prove that they can say the offensive thing. Nick Fuentes and the groypers are not hateful people. Nick Fuentes and the groypers have, ever since I've been in touch with them, like ever since I got invited to AppPack, honestly, they've never been anything but respectful to me, and that's even when they're telling me that they disagree with me. Nick Fuentes and the groypers are, like, honestly, they're good people at the end of the day. They can be a pain in the ass on Twitter. They really can be, and they know that. But they're not monsters, and they're not hateful. And they have very real and very legitimate concerns about what is happening in the country. And they, honestly, like, Nick actually has some sort of tactical plan with which to, over a long term, get them in positions where they have decision-making authority. They're mostly young men now, so that's just the way it goes. But, like, everyone should at least listen to him. Don't allow people who do not have your best interest at heart. James Lindsay does not have your best interest at heart. Don't allow people who don't have your best interest at heart to influence you to believe that you should hate someone or you should be afraid of someone when you haven't even bothered to listen to what that person has to say. So, you might not like everything he says, but he is wildly intelligent. He is doing analysis that is better than most people on the internet. He's not a hateful person. He's not calling for the eradication of the Jews. He's not calling for all black people to be killed. He's not doing it. He's not calling for women to be burned at the stake. Okay, he did that one time, but it was a joke. If all we're ever going to do is hinge into outrage culture on the internet, then we are so fucked. Do you really think they're going to start burning women at the stake? Can we hinge back into reality? Can we please? Do you know who love Nick Fuentes more than almost anyone else? The moms. Do you know how many moms love Nick Fuentes? And Nick loves it when the moms watch him. He loves it when the moms and grandmas watch him. He loves it when they send in super chats. He is one of the most charming people in the world to, like, these women who love him. The moms get introduced to him from their sons. The moms fall in love with Nick. Do you really think the moms would love him so much if he was really going to burn them all at the stake? Can we just be realistic about this? Come on.
Think that's not happening within the broader conservative movement. If you use just the biblical principle of a judge by its fruits, the fruits are here.
Thank you.
We see the fruits. We maybe can't name the names, but it's a very concerning phenomenon, and I think that it's less organic than people suspect it is. I think there are people who are probably the same people who paid the left are paying a lot of these people on the right to cause this problem to get to the singular goal that they want to get to.
Well, and the people who maybe are the woke right or the people who are confused are embracing it, right? And helping to propagate it. And it does make everything look stupid. I mean, it makes it look bad, and you don't want to support. Yes, it makes you guys look stupid. I don't want to support that.
Yes,
right?
Yes, it makes you guys look stupid. That's really the problem at the end of the day. It makes these guys look stupid. That's why they don't like it.
And then it disenfranchises all of these voters that we need to support.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that there's been very clearly what we might call a woke right operation that, as far as I can tell, started on something like October 8th or 9th or 10th, like immediately after October 7th last year, which was the attack by Hamas on Israel. There was immediately this kind of weird shift on right-wing players, not just the lunatic left, which went, full Gaza Floyd.
Can I just get a show of hands in my chat? And I only want the women, okay? This is the honor system. I only want the women, okay? Men, I appreciate you. I love you. I'm not looking for your opinion right now. Can all the women in the chat put a 1 if you like Nick Fuentes? Put a 2 if you do not like Nick Fuentes. Put a 3 if you don't know and you haven't watched him enough to be sure, okay? So just the ladies. 1 in the chat if you like Nick Fuentes. 2 in the chat if you do not like Nick Fuentes. 3 in the chat if you're just a little unsure because you haven't watched him that much. What do I think about Owen Benjamin? I generally think he's crazy. No, you cannot identify as a woman for the purpose of this vote. No. Be on our system. We're being honest. 1, 1, 3, 3, 1, 1, 3, or 1, 3, 3, 1, 1, 3, 1. Don't watch him much, but he's got some great takes on things. 1, 3. So there are no 2s. 1, 3. So it seems as though 3, I'm unsure, but not because I haven't watched much of him. Yeah. So it looks like there aren't any women in the chat that overtly hate Nick Fuentes. And the ones that have watched him kind of like him. And that should really tell you something, guys. It really, really should. Nick Fuentes and the groypers don't hate women. They just don't want women involved in politics because women fuck everything up. And I think we can all acknowledge the women that are smart to say that, like, listen, man, there are exceptions to the rule. There are women who don't suck. There are. I like to think I'm one of the women that don't suck, but occasionally I have my moments. I would say occasionally men have their moments too. Occasionally I have my moments, but I have less moments than most women, I think. But there are a lot of women out there, and especially younger women. And I think this is one of the legitimate grievances that groypers have. They can't find young women who they want to marry. And it's not because they aren't very good looking, and it's not because they can't get girls. I have been in the room with them. I have been at their events. I've seen them in person. They are good looking. They're funny. They can get girls, guys. They're not these ragingly ugly, fat incels. They're just not. And so their beef is society has ruined women. Society has made women promiscuous. Society has led to women sleeping with all these men. Society has led to women not wanting to be mothers, not wanting to have kids, not wanting to be in, not wanting to go to church, not wanting to engage in any of these things. That's their beef. And you know what? Quite frankly, they're right. It's not an unreasonable criticism, okay? If Nick were in power, would he scrap it? Well, I mean, if Nick became president of the United States, he wouldn't be able to just scrap the Constitution. I do think that in Nick's ideal world, he does want a Catholic monarchy, but Nick has also flat out said, I've heard him say, he's like, this isn't actually going to happen. He's like, in our ideal world, here's what we want and here's what we think would work. But that isn't actually going to happen. What I do think he does want is I do think he wants more white Christian men in power. I think he wants more white Christian men that are not, and the key is that it's not even really about being Christian, although it kind of is. I mean, it's Catholic specifically is what he wants, but what it really is he wants men in power that are not beholden to Israel. He wants men in power that are not making decisions about our money and what the United States is doing based on what Israel wants us to do. So he views Catholic, and again, please correct me if there are groypers in the chat or if people think I'm getting this wrong. I'm an imperfect person. I could be explaining it incorrectly. He believes that Catholicism is the antidote to a disproportional amount of impact that Israel has on our country. And he believes that white men should be in positions of power making the decisions, and he believes that women should not be making the decisions. And listen, you might disagree with him, and it's fine to disagree with him, but what I would encourage people to do is get to like the core of what the actual objection is, because oftentimes Nick does these things where he's joking around and he's using humor to articulate his points, and he makes it seem like a much bigger thing than it is when it's actually kind of simple. I think, and again, I'm not speaking for him, I'm speaking about my perception of him. I could be wrong. But I think that Nick's biggest concern is the influence of Israel on American politics. That is the thing that he's worried about the most. That is what he wants to end it, and he wants people to actually put Americans before they put Israel. That is the biggest concern. And most of the rest of this is just smoke and mirrors, to be honest. It really just is. It's like things that are never going to come to fruition in reality because the primary problem that Nick is tackling is already so big and so huge that it's like he's probably not going to be even able to fix that one in this lifetime. But again, I would just encourage people to listen to his show. A Wignat is a Wigger nationalist. It's the type of dissident right-winger that I do not like. Wignats are awful. Wignats are... Actually, most of the people in Chris Brunet's Twitter feed, fun fact, they're Wignats. Most of the people in Chris Brunet's Twitter feed that are influencing him to be an asshole, they're Wignats. And Wignats hate me. And Wignats hate Nick, too, so I feel like I'm in good company. But yeah. You've been called a Wignat, an incel, even though you have 2 X's. Yeah, I mean, listen again. I've been in a room with the groypers. I've been in their private spaces. They're not ugly people. They're not irredeemable. They're funny. A lot of them are really cute. Like, I say that in a completely big sister way. All right. They call me Mommy Carlin sometimes. I like to think I'm more like the crazy big sister or the crazy aunt that some of them needed that they never had. He's one of the few to speak openly about the JQ, and Catholicism has historically been an antidote. Yeah. And by the way, guys, they really are Catholic. They're really Catholic. James likes to say that they're pretend Catholic. They're not pretend Catholic. They're really Catholic. I have groypers that pray for me. I have groypers that pray for my conversion to Catholicism for real. I have groypers that I talk to. They go to church every single Sunday. They go to confession. There are a lot of groypers that converted into the Catholic Church, which means they've gone through these RCIA classes, that they had to go to these classes every single week for a year or something like that. I'm sure some of you have been through them. They really do take it seriously. There are groypers that say we will only marry Catholic women. That is a requirement. There are I've had Beardson invite me to church with him. Beardson really wants me to go to mass with him because he wants to share that with me. And honestly, it's kind of endearing. It really is. It's kind of endearing that he wants to share that with me. I've been to mass before, but it's really nice to be invited. And so that is actually a real thing for them. It's not just for show. James thinks it is. It's really not.
On the streets, and they still are to this day. But we also saw this shift on the right, and just thinking from a counterintelligence kind of playbook, what would be the role of that? Well, it would be you're about to have a whole lot of Jews who are horrified by what's happening on the left, and they're going to look for somewhere else to go with lots of money and resources in some cases that might end up in Republican coffers. Better stop that. Make sure the Jews are scared to come to the Republican side. And all of a sudden you have, whether it's Christ as king being beaten over the head, or blame the Jews for everything,
never going to come to the Republican side, James. That's not going to happen.
Pro-Nazi memes. You have this. But I think what's important with this, whether it's woke left or woke right, is to remember that the vast majority of the people involved in both cases are not necessarily strictly perpetrators. They are mostly victims. They are victims of a psychological campaign. They are victims of cult indoctrination who are perpetuating.
Yes. James thinks that my entire audience is in a cult. Now, I know I call my show The Cult, but that was an abbreviation of the culture war. That was what that was. Also, I do kind of like the play on words. I like a good play on words as much as anyone. And having The Cult as my show is just kind of fun. I get to say join the cult. I get to do cult-like things. I get to make myself look like a cult-like figure and an anti-hero. But James really thinks that my regular audience is indoctrinated into a cult. He really does. For real. James thinks that all the groypers are in a cult. He thinks that they can't think for themselves. He thinks that they just follow Nick's orders. And it's just yeah. Yeah, he thinks that everyone drank the Kool-Aid. He thinks that all the accounts are actually me. It's yeah, James, I think, just wishes he had a cult, and he's really jealous that, I have a small cult. I have a small but mighty cult. Nick Fuentes has a much larger cult. I mean, it's just stupid, man. People like what they like. There are a lot of reasons to like Nick Fuentes. He is funny. He is so funny. He's so endearing. He is so smart. He actually, like, I've seen groypers talk about how much Nick motivated them to be a better person. Where, like, they went and lost weight, or they got a better job because Nick told them, you got to go out there and be successful, and that's how we're going to gain power. Like, or like they like Beardson, I think, is a great example. Beardson is like one of Nick's longest time friends. He's on Nick's platform and all this stuff. Beardson became, listen, I kind of had an interaction with Beardson before, like, Catholicism, or like as he was getting into Catholicism. Beardson has become like one of the chillest fucking people since he like completed, I don't know exactly what it's called. I'm gonna like butcher the language, but like I guess got confirmed in the Catholic Church. He is so chill now. And it's just like, you can see, like, they actually do. And again, I'll say, like, the groypers, most of the, if you're not fucking with Nick, like, the groypers are nice. They're respectful. They're nice young gentlemen. And so this idea that they're all indoctrinated into a cult, it's like, this is a cult where they have entertainment. This is a cult where they have camaraderie. This is a cult where they get to think about ideas and they get to be subversive. And don't young people like to be subversive? I've said this a million times. I think the groypers are they're punk rock culture. They're the punk rock counterculture with Catholic virgins. Like, how great is that? I mean, come on. They're young men who are rebelling against a system that they believe has failed them. And in a lot of respects, they're right. The system has failed them, and the people that they trusted to guide the system have failed them. And you know what? If they have someone where they're creating a community with each other, they love each other, they enjoy each other, they tell each other they love each other all the time. Why shouldn't they have that? Why shouldn't they? Why should they be a cult for being around people that they enjoy? Why should they be a cult because they have friends that James Lindsay doesn't like, because they consider ideas that James Lindsay doesn't approve of? Like, fuck this shit. Like, I'm sorry. I had my formative years in the 90s, and so I have this crazy idea that, like, Rage Against the Machine actually used to be rebellious against the fucking machine. Like, we used to be allowed to do this stuff. We can no longer do it because James Lindsay and the fucking stick in the muds on the conservative fucking right wants to call everyone that disagrees with them, that does something even remotely interesting, they want to go, you're literally insane, you're literally a narcissist, you're a malignant narcissist, you have borderline personality disorder, you are literally insane, you are a crazy person, you are insane, and they freak out over everything. Does anyone else find this, like, perpetual fucking moral crusade that these people are on, to demanding that we be just like them? Demanding that we use the words they want us to use. Demanding that we stop saying the things that they find offensive. I'm sorry. I left the left for a fucking reason, and it wasn't to join the retard fucking control freaks on the conservative right. There used to be a counterculture. This used to exist. James Lindsay is the woke right. All of these people on this moral crusade. Oh my God, you're literally crazy if you play a character on the internet. You're literally crazy if you question our ideas, and we're going to spread rumors about you and smear you and do all this stuff because you're the one. You deserve to have rumors spread about you because you're literally crazy. I'm still waiting for anyone to tell me exactly what I'm doing with receipts. That's literally crazy. We ain't for the woke Puritan bullshit. Exactly, Mac B. Exactly.
That cycle of abuse. And so, when you talk about it heating up everything, I actually got contacted by the New York Times the other day. And they said, hey, we want to talk to you about your reinstatement on X, which is like 2 years ago. So that's fake. Elon Musk got a lot of people back on X. It says, did you get to find new audiences? And I'm like, okay. And then the next line is, and a lot of these people that he let back on X are talking about how the government can control the weather and create hurricanes. Could you give any evidence for where Obama's controlling hurricanes? Because I made a joke on Twitter that said, and I was one of these reinstated accounts where I said it was Obama's weather machines, but it was like really obviously a joke.
Wait, so James is allowed to make jokes on Twitter, but no one else is allowed to make jokes on Twitter. James doesn't like it when his jokes get taken out of context and twisted to mean something they didn't mean, but no one else is allowed to say, I was making a fucking joke, asshole. I was making a joke. No, everyone else has to be taken seriously except for James.
But obviously the New York Times reporter didn't quite get it. And so what I replied back, and I think this is the point I really want to drive home with this, is that whether it's woke left or woke right doesn't matter. The reason that things are going so sideways, so off the rails, is because they are propagandizing us. They are doing psychological operations on us. And those have been allowed. Our intelligence communities can do psych ops through our media and in other ways on the American people on purpose. We can wage psych war on ourselves as a country because Obama in 2012 modernized what's called the Smith-Mundt Act, which was passed in 1948 to prevent propaganda being used by the American government on the American people. And he modernized the act, which now allows for a variety of ways in which the intelligence communities can, in fact, do propaganda. So it's like they have, you know, like in Star Wars, you got the Death Star and the beams come out and then it blows up a planet. Well, basically, imagine those beams make people crazy instead of blowing up a planet. And that's the media. And they are concentrating beams of making everybody nuts. And they're shooting that, whether it's through television, whether it's through talk radio, whether it's through podcasts, whether it's through social media. And it's, I think, again, we see the fruits. Everybody's going crazy.
And
yes,
I think
James,
you're right.
everyone is going crazy,
I did a whole 10-part
including
series
you.
on fifth generation warfare, which is this.
Yeah.
And I think there's a place to talk.
James Lindsay, I'm the only one that's not going crazy. Also, James Lindsay, if you say the prayer to Archangel Michael, you're literally worshiping Satan. Yeah, okay. No, I am handling slime. This is a birthday cake slime. And it's very slimy, and I've been making these big bubbles with it, and then you pop the bubbles and it makes pleasing sounds to manage my anxiety and my anger as I watch these things. This is how I cope. People are going to say, you're literally crazy for handling slime, Carlin. You're literally... No, this is how I cope. This is it. I don't ask a lot. No, you can't eat it. No, it's made of glue. Slime is made of glue. Don't eat it. It's going to taste bad. But it smells really good. And the texture is pleasing.
About what happened and I don't want to dwell on it in this conversation, but there's a place to talk about Israel in an intellectual, serious way. You know, as an ally, are they an ally? What are they doing there? And we shouldn't just accept what a state is doing. We should look at it, how it affects us as a country, and whether all these things. We need to have actual conversations about it.
Thanks, Alex.
But if you do, you are either put into
Appreciate
one
it.
camp or the other, and we're not allowed to actually, that's the propaganda. Instead of actually having intelligent conversations about what's going on, we are put into these extremes and instead, and you can't talk about anything.
That's right. So that's actually got a name that's called affordance trapping. So they only afford you two positions that you're allowed to hold. And only two ways that things are allowed to be, two sets of discourses, of ways that things can be talked about. And they huddle everybody into them. So anybody who, you either stay out of it completely and silence yourself, or anybody who wades even a little bit close to it is subjected to.
You like sharpening things? My husband has a knife collection. He has his whole knife collection on his desk downstairs. My husband does customer service stuff. He has his whole knife collection. He fiddles with his knife collection. He doesn't cut him. He only rarely cuts himself, which is good. But like, I could see that might be. He gets all excited when he gets a new knife. He's like, Carlin, look at my new knife. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. It's got a neat handle.
Brutal psychological bullying campaigns that push you into one camp or the other. And you're only really allowed to articulate the view from one side or the other. You either support Hamas or you support Israel. And it's 100% all the way, in all ways, all the time.
No, James, that's you. That's you. Nick Fuentes does not support Hamas. I do not support Hamas. Nick Fuentes doesn't support Israel. I don't support Israel either. And I don't mean to be telling tales out of school, like everyone can have their own opinion, but I don't think any of the fucking groypers support Hamas. I think that that's pretty clear based on the fact that Nick has been saying lately that they don't support Hamas. So no, James, you are the one. You and Rufo and all of these other fucking Zionist shills. You are the ones who have put people into this binary position to say, if you don't support Israel, you literally support Hamas. Do you know what I support? I support Palestinian women and children not being fucking bombed for no good fucking reason. I support Gaza not being leveled by Israel. Do you want to know why? And I completely agree with Nick Fuentes on this. He's 100% right. I would prefer that the Palestinians stay in fucking Palestine. I just want the Palestinians to stay in Palestine. Now, the Palestinians can't do that. You want to know why? Because Israel has fucking leveled Gaza. Which means there's going to be all these refugees that are floating around. And does anyone want to guess who is going to be taking the refugees? Oh, that's going to be us? Maybe Egypt's going to take some. Maybe Jordan's going to take some. But it's mostly going to be fucking us? Oh, okay. So Israel gets to bomb the shit out of fucking Gaza, create it so that it is completely unlivable. All these Palestinians have to go somewhere. Otherwise, they're just going to die. Where do you think those refugees are going to be going? Oh, wait, it all comes back to us, doesn't it? Every single fucking time. And P.S., for our troubles, on top of that, Israel says, hey, United States, do you want to go to war with Iran? Because, we don't want to go to war with Iran, but you can go to war with Iran on our behalf, and maybe we'll bomb the shit out of Iran too, but maybe, United States, can you go to war with Iran for us? Benjamin Netanyahu came to Congress and basically all but demanded that the United States go to war with Iran on behalf of fucking Israel. I don't want to go to war with Iran. Yeah, my dog definitely agrees. My dog is like right with me right now. She's a Chihuahua. You don't mess with that bitch. I don't want to go to war with Iran. I don't want American people to die in a war with Iran. It is not our fucking war. And I do not support Hamas just for saying that I don't want to go to war with Iran. I'm not a fucking Muslim fucking extremist if I say I don't want to go to war with Iran. But no, James and all of these other people are trying to paint all of us into a position. If you don't support Israel, you are literally supporting terrorism. Go fuck yourselves.
And we could switch the frame if that one's too sensitive for some people to listen to. It could be you either support Russia or you support Ukraine. And you either support China or you support Taiwan. You could just pick anything you want where, like you said, there's space for intelligent conversations. And at all times, all citizens everywhere should not just be handing a pass out to their government. You should always be questioning your governments.
That's my point, yes.
And that gets pushed away through this polarizing tool called an affordance trap, where they give you a limited. It's like
James.
when you take your little kid to the grocery store and you're like, they want cereal.
You know what? Listen, guys, I really have to believe. I'm really hoping here. I am really hoping that at some point I'm going to get some sign from the universe that tells me that the majority of people know that James Lindsay is full of shit. I really am hoping that. Because, like, the thing of it is it is so obvious to me what is going on. It is so obvious to me that he is shilling the approved narrative. And I have to believe that people who understand that the media builds narratives, they understand this when it comes from the left. They understand it when it comes from mainstream media. At some point, people are going to have to be able to see through this shit, right? It was like it's like how the left used to call everyone racist, right? But they were the ones that were actually being ridiculous about like whiteness. Now we all know that whiteness means capitalism now. We know that, but like there was all sorts of 2020 was a fucking race riot essentially. Can we have to acknowledge that? It really was. That was a messed up time. And that was because the left was calling everyone racist, and we all thought it meant skin color when it didn't, because they were using language to fuck with us, but we all thought it did. And it was like, no, you guys are the real racists. You guys are the ones that want to treat people based on like skin color. And I feel like the same thing is happening here. It's like James is like, everyone is the woke right except me. Everyone is the woke right except me. It's only classical liberals who are not the woke right. It's only us who are free thinkers. It's only us who are able to have a free exchange of ideas. And it's like, bro, you're literally the one trying to censor everyone else. You're literally the one on Twitter calling people insane if they don't agree with you. You're literally the one who wants to silence people when they say words you don't like or post memes you don't like on Twitter. You're telling me that you're not woke, James? You are the very fucking definition of woke. And I have to believe that enough people are going to see that eventually. Can you just give me a 1 in the chat if you see that? 1 in the chat if you see that. 2 in the chat if you think I'm full of shit. How did he go from exposing the universities to this? I think that's a very good question. Do you know how that happened? Money. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. It's so depressing, guys. It really is. It's so depressing. He used to be one of my heroes. He really did. He was very inspiring to me in 2020 and 2021. Or the beginning part of 2021. All idols have clay feet, guys. Never let a former admiration for someone lead you to overlook the flaws in what they are currently doing. It's really, I'm being serious. Like, James might think I'm psychotic, but I actually am legitimately, I on a personal level, as someone that really believed in him. Oh yeah, well, Helen's more leftist than James is. On a personal level, as someone that believed in him, I feel like a personal level of betrayal. And I know that a lot of people in my community also feel a personal level of betrayal. I don't think that I'm alone here. We believed in James. Like, for a lot of people in my community, James taught us a lot before he went insane. And it's like, all you had to do, James, was hold it together. That was all you had to do. You had all the support in the world to hold it together. All you had to do was not become a paid fucking talking head. That was all you had to do. It's really upsetting.
Like, you can get Cocoa Puffs or Frosted Flakes, which one? And you only let them choose from the 2, even though there's 500 cereals, just to simplify the process and get them out of the aisle, right? You can have this or that. That's allowing them, or giving them a small set of affordances. So an affordance trap affords you a very limited number of ways of interpreting the situation. And if you look at these, they're extraordinarily polarizing and push all the way out into being represented by the most extreme views.
That is. And then it makes it so that we just shut down. And the
Correct.
shutdown is the norm. The people who want to have discussion and try to work through the issues end up just disengaging because you guys are all crazy.
That's right. So that's, like I said, that's the only other option, is to just get to hell with it. I can't do this. I can't get involved with this crap. And so then what you have is all of the moderate and reasonable voices are silenced, and only the extremists are allowed to talk. And anybody who tries to break that kind of force field ends up heavily pushed to one side or the other.
Literally everyone's allowed to talk. Who is silencing you, James? Who is silencing you? This is James's most ironic talking point of all. James is literally pissed off. One of the reasons James is pissed off at me is because I post screenshots of his public tweets on Twitter. And I say, James is having a nutty one today. James is telling everyone that Archangel Michael is Satan today. And I just post a screenshot of his tweets. I'm like, well, James is going after this person today. James is doing this today. James is calling these people woke today. James thinks everyone needs to be a classical liberal today. James has so much free speech, and he can say whatever the fuck he wants. But he's pissed off that I post a screenshot of his tweets. James, if you don't want to be held accountable for your own words, then don't fucking tweet them in the fucking first place. God knows, people like James have been taking my words out of context for years. Welcome to the fucking internet, bitch.
Heavily abused, right? And you're
That's
not,
right.
you're abused
Yeah.
by everybody. So, but
True.
that's what takes down a country, right? I mean,
Well,
that's
I would
the,
actually.
But again,
Go
it's
ahead.
like,
Yes, it does.
it's like I really have to hope that in my heart of hearts that there are people who can see what's happening. There are so many insane people on Twitter. There really are. There are insane people on Twitter. There are outrage junkies. There are people who just spend all day on Twitter to feed their dopamine addiction. And those are usually the loudest people on Twitter. But I have to believe that there are people that are smart enough to look at the fact that Chris Brunet actually never told me to stop messaging him, and that everything I messaged him was actually highly relevant to things that he himself was posting publicly, and I was actually just trying to be a good person and say, bro, like maybe there's an olive branch to be had here. And he loses his fucking shit over the fact that I said good morning to him in a fucking group chat that we were both in. That's not hinged into reality. Like, James wants to run around telling people that I wanted to fuck him. When I showed my entire, when I got confirmation of this fucking lie, I literally showed my entire DM history with James Lindsay over 3 years on a stream I did the other day. You can find it on my channel if you want to see it. I showed my entire DM history with James for 3 years. There was no flirting. There was no sexy talk. There were no kissy face emojis. There were no heart emojis. There were no invitations for drinks. There was one joke that I made one time about James's giant fucking sword, which James completely played into, and it was funny. And you want to tell me with a serious face that I was trying to fuck James Lindsay and that everyone needs to be told that I'm a psycho on the internet because I was trying to fuck him when there is literally no evidence that I was trying to do anything? Like, literally zero. And you want to tell me that that's a sane reaction, that James has spread a rumor about me for fucking years? That I did things that there is no evidence that I did at all? I have to hope that people see it at some point. And yeah, I think we can all be honest that James is just jealous because I have a bigger sword. And this is why gay men love me. It's true.
Because of the polarization, but you are kind of abused by everybody. But what you're in social media, where the primary abuse comes from, you're primarily abused by big scale actors hiring bot farms and hiring agitators. I would venture that when you touch one of these controversial topics on social media and you end up in kind of a swarm response, one of these struggle sessions that comes across your feed when you touch the wrong live wire, I would argue that probably greater than 95% of the bullying and responses that you're getting are not coming from people that are even genuinely people at all. That you are being subjected to a powerful influence campaign, and then that influence campaign takes it. So what happens is 5 or 6 actual people that you know then jump on one side or the other and push on you too, and now all of a sudden it's super psychologically and relationally real to you. But those people, again, are not bad actors. They're victims of the psychological campaign and the fact that once you hit the live wire, a snowball started to roll, and they eventually said, well, I've got to say something too. And then they said something, and because of your personal connection, it actually really did damage to you. But I would venture the guess that at least 90%, if not more than 95%, when you're in that situation, is manufactured, artificial attack, more fake than real by a significant, overwhelming proportion.
I think you're right. But then how do we deal with this? How do we, because these are the issues that we need to deal with. But if social media is so controlled in that way, how do we break through and have reasonable conversations on topics that are sensitive that we have to talk about?
I would love to know. What I found is that when people are getting together regularly in person, that this problem doesn't happen as much.
That's right.
But you also have virtually no reach. You have the
Do you know how you get together regularly to have reasonable conversations, James? Do you know how I do that? I stream 6 days a week, and most of those days we are talking about the far left, and I built a community where we are having almost daily conversations about the far left, and I have group chats on Twitter where we're talking about the far left, and I have a Discord where we're doing stuff to fight the far left. Do you know how you engage reasonable people in reasonable conversation? You show up and you fucking talk to them. James doesn't know how to do any of that. James doesn't know how to teach live on the internet. James could never do what I do. And so this is why he's so fucking confused. I might not have the biggest community in the world, but I have a lot. I have over 100,000 people that I teach every single fucking month. And do all those people show up for every live stream? No. A lot of those people are on my Substack. They watch clips on my Substack, or they watch clips that I make here, or they watch clips on Twitter. I mean, actually, if you count my Twitter audience, I teach way more than 100,000 people. But Twitter is like, it's always nebulous. I don't really know how many people actually reach on Twitter. But like on my YouTube channel, on my Substack, I teach well over 100,000 people a month about the left. And sometimes they show up for 1 or 2 streams. Sometimes they show up for all the streams. Sometimes they only show up for the written articles. It depends on what people want. But you want to know how you create community? You go out there and you actually create community, and you put boundaries on that community so you have reasonable fucking conversations in that community. My community is not an unmoderated community. It is a heavily moderated community because people need to be given boundaries. Otherwise, the whole thing just goes to hell. So I do not run a classical liberal community. I am the authoritarian fucking cult leader in my community, and my community will run the way I see fit to make it a nice place for everyone to be. And James wants to say that makes her literally crazy. Carlin is a narcissist because that makes her literally crazy. No. I'm not going to allow bullshit and nonsense and outrage addicted fucking hooligans come over here and take their fucking mental illness out on me and my community. This is my private goddamn property. If people don't want to be part of it, they don't have to be here. But I will not allow my community to be corrupted, just like society has become corrupted by classical liberalism. People try to debate me all the fucking time. They say, but Carlin, you don't believe in free speech. No. In my community, I do not believe in free speech. You have free speech when it comes to the federal government. You do not have free speech in my chat. You do not have free speech in my fucking Discord. You do not have free speech on my Substack. If you say shit to me on Twitter because you're being an asshole, I will block you and I will take away your ability to interact with me. You do not have free speech when it comes to being in my world, and I do not have to allow it. And if that makes me a fucking narcissist, then so be it. Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate you. Jennifer, can you send me a DM on Twitter and remind me what you wanted to do the show on tonight, or the idea you had? I would appreciate it. Otherwise, I'm going to come up with something on my own.
The reach of that group and whoever they can go out and talk to individually. So this is the trade-off. I've also noticed that when you realize you're probably being attacked by an influence campaign, that your psychology about the whole thing changes, and it doesn't mess with you in the same way. It's not nearly as effective. But
James is the influence campaign.
It raises some concerns. Something that I think about a lot recently, and I'm grateful to Elon Musk for everything that he does virtually. And I'm grateful that I got back on the largest social media network that there is because he bought Twitter and changed it to X. But the fact of the matter is the algorithm on X, whatever it is right now, and for whatever set of reasons, is I'm glad you can tell the truth on X. I'm glad that there's pretty close to free speech on X. I am concerned about how free that really is and what gets boosted and deboosted, but I can't answer to that at all.
Well, and
but
there's
I will
some
say
people
that,
I just want to interject. There's some people like me who still are suffering suppression, but keep going.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think that there are
she's
way
just
more people
insane.
suppressed on X than we believe there are. And you definitely get lifted up and pulled down based on when you're saying things that are what people want you to say. And I'm concerned about that, but I'm primarily concerned about the algorithm. I find that X now is in most ways vastly superior to X or to Twitter before Elon bought it. The censorship, the BS, the whatever. However, to just sit there and scroll through and read, it's unmanageable
then
psychologically.
Don't do it.
It is the worst, irritating, agitating. It's so bad that I've almost stopped doing it. I almost never see other people's tweets
Maybe
unless
you
somebody
should.
sends them to me or posts or whatever they're called now, because I can't scroll because the algorithm feels designed for conflict, for constant psychological information conflict. And it's miserable. So I don't know who's doing this. I don't know if they're doing it on purpose. I don't know what the magic sauce is, but
James,
I find the
James, I'm going to tell you exactly what's going on with the algorithm. Because I have some experience with this. Because I got permanently banned on Twitter for about a month at the end of 2022. And I know the algorithm has changed since then, but I think that this still holds true. This still works for me. The algorithm on Twitter is dictated by the accounts that you interact with. It says if you like content from these accounts, you're probably going to like content from these accounts. And if you keep liking tweets and retweeting tweets from these accounts, we're going to show you more tweets from these accounts because it seems like you really like this content and you're staying engaged with this content. Now, an interesting thing happened to me when my main account got permanently banned is that what happened was my main account was dictating the algorithm for other accounts I have. Because I do have multiple accounts on Twitter. I have brand accounts on Twitter. I have other things that I have. So what was happening was my main account, because I was using them all in the same browser, was connected to all of my other accounts on Twitter. When my main account got suspended, all of a sudden, all of my other accounts on Twitter disconnected from the algorithm. And it was like the first time I was like, there's nice places on Twitter. There are people who are talking about things that are not just outrage junkies. There are people who are doing things on Twitter that aren't just fighting all the time and engaging in bullshit and nonsense. And this was honestly like I was banned for 1 month and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because I actually, in that month, I detoxed from Twitter. I really did. And there were times when it was hard. There were times I was like, give me my fucking account back. It was like a drug to me. It really was. I was freaking out for part of it. I was like, that third week, when all of the outrage addiction was like working its way out of my system, I was like, give me my fucking drug. I was like, I wanted my account back so bad. But then you know what happened is the outrage dissipated from my system. And by the time I got my account back, which was almost exactly a month to the day after I got banned, I was completely detoxed. And I was like, you know what? I'm doing Twitter differently now. I am never, ever, ever getting into that place where I'm only getting served outrage and bullshit again. So I started making a concerted effort. I followed a lot of positivity accounts. I interact with a lot of positivity accounts. I follow accounts that have cute animal videos and things like that. I follow accounts about art and culture and things like that. And guess what? I interact with those accounts. I like those accounts. I don't retweet them as much as I should because I don't know that people actually like them. But I do make a focused effort to these are the types of accounts that I'm going to interact with. And I probably could actually get better about this, about retweeting and stuff like that. And it'll serve me even more positive content. And when I started engaging with positive content on Twitter, I started getting more of it in the algorithm. And it still works like that today. If you engage with positive content, you will be served more positive content by the algorithm. You are in charge of your experience. You are in charge of the type of content that you engage with. You are in charge. If you're getting shitty content on Twitter, it's because you're engaging with shitty content on Twitter. If you get positive, uplifting content on Twitter, it's because you're engaging with positive, uplifting content on Twitter. This is not rocket science. The reason that James's feed is unmanageable is because all James does, and you can look at his Twitter account and you can see this for yourself, all he does is engage in outrage-addicted bullshit. He retweets some of the most toxic people on the internet. He promotes some of the most ridiculous ideologies on the internet. He's engaging with the same people over and over and over again because the algorithm keeps feeding him the same toxic people over and over and over again. If James changed the way that he was interacting with the algorithm would change for him. James doesn't want to change the way he's interacting with the algorithm because James is an outrage-addicted junkie. And that's part of the problem. Because all he's doing all day, every day is trolling around Twitter looking for things to be pissed off at.
User experience of X now to be so poor that I just don't look at it. I don't look at what other people are doing on there anymore.
It's soul crushing, right? It's just like, oh my gosh. So you have been involved in trying to get out a movie called Beneath Sheep's Clothing.
I don't want to talk about that. And the woman who made that movie is a psycho. I don't really want to talk about that. I think that's enough, guys. Can we call it there? I have another show coming up in an hour and a half. I haven't eaten yet today. Fun fact, people think I just spend all my time eating when I'm not on the internet. No, it's 7:30 at night. I literally have not eaten yet today. I had a couple cups of coffee and that was it. And so I'm going to go get something to eat because I'm starting to feel a little bit hangry, if I'm honest about it. I'm starting to feel like I'm going to yell at someone, and I really hope that's not my husband. My husband doesn't deserve it. My husband's a good man. My husband puts up with a lot. He lets me do a lot of stuff that normal husbands would not let me do. And so I think we're going to call it there. And so I appreciate people who stopped by today. We will return to far left content tomorrow, but just because James was complaining about me so much, I wanted to work some feelings out of my system, and it's my stream. I'll do what I want. And yeah, that's all we have for today, guys. I will be back a little bit later on tonight. We are doing Disenrage at 9 p.m., so about an hour and a half. So if you want to come back and get some good old spirituality in, now that we've had our outrage content, we will be doing spirituality and mindfulness and fairies and elves and all these other nice things. And something, I don't know exactly what we're doing tonight, but we're doing something. We're doing that at 9 p.m. tonight, guys. I will see you then. Take care. Have a good rest of the day. We'll see you soon. Bye.
How are you feeling?
Well,
How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
To give you some idea.
I am not completely like other people.
What do you mean by that?
People dislike me because I am not completely like them.
trying to do with your life?
Play the piano for people.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.